In our headlines on this Wednesday, April 16th, here in South Korea. The trade war between Washington and Beijing may transcend tariffs as the Trump administration restricts the sale of specific Nvidia chips to China and hints at exploring the option of delisting Chinese stocks from U.S. exchanges. Meanwhile, South Korean Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok will meet with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Washington next week for trade talks, following an invitation from the U.S. Treasury Department. And here on the local political front, the Democratic Party has 3 contenders competing for its party ticket to the top office, while the People Power Party has 8 candidates seeking to regain the reins of the top office. The Trump administration is ratcheting up its pressure on Beijing by restricting the export of Nvidia's H20 chips to China and may also explore prospects of removing Chinese stocks from U.S. exchanges. Moon Ji-young has our top story.
The Trump administration is seemingly enhancing its curbs on China amid escalating trade tensions. One significant action taken is restricting Nvidia from selling its H20 chips, which have been among its most popular products, to China. Nvidia stated on Tuesday that the Trump administration privately informed them last week that selling the H20 to China would require a license, quote, for the indefinite future. According to Nvidia, the new regulation addresses Washington's concerns that the covered products may be used in or diverted to a supercomputer in China. The AI chip giant warned that it expects to report about $5.5 billion in write-downs due to inventory issues, and the new rule will also hinder a product line specifically designed for China to comply with previous U.S. restrictions. Following this announcement, Nvidia stock fell by 6.3% in after-hours trading, despite having gained 1.3% during regular trading hours on the New York Stock Exchange. Meanwhile, the announcement follows Nvidia's commitment made on Monday to invest $500 billion in AI infrastructure in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
I believe the U.S. intends to convey that if we allow China's manufacturing capabilities to grow without significant obstacles, we risk losing our own manufacturing base. This situation seems to evoke a sense of crisis among us.
Additionally, the trade showdown is spilling over to Chinese stocks listed in the U.S. According to Politico, U.S. administration officials are considering actions to delist nearly 300 Chinese firms trading on U.S. exchanges. When asked about this potential during an interview with Fox Business last week, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated, quote, everything is on the table. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok will meet with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Washington next week for trade talks. According to the ministry here, the meeting comes at the invitation of the U.S. Treasury Department. Our Shin Se-byuk has the latest.
South Korean Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok is set to visit the U.S. next week for trade talks with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Seoul's finance ministry said on Wednesday that Choi's trip comes in response to a meeting proposal from Washington's Treasury chief. The meeting is expected to take place on the sidelines of Choi's visit to Washington, D.C. next week for the G20 finance ministers meeting. Key agenda items for the meeting will include trade issues, which have emerged as a key point of contention between the two allies, as well as monetary and foreign exchange matters. Seoul said the final schedule and list of participants for the meeting are still under review. The report follows Bessent's interview with Bloomberg TV on Monday, where he said Washington would hold trade negotiations with South Korea next week. The Wall Street Journal also reported earlier this week that the Trump administration is prioritizing negotiations with 5 countries, namely South Korea, the UK, Australia, Japan, and India. An expert says the White House is looking to secure early deals with countries more open to dialogue before moving on to more difficult trading partners.
South Korea is one of the 5 countries included because, aside from Mexico and Canada, it's the most eager among major trade surplus nations to reach a deal with the U.S.
Seoul is reportedly preparing a proposal for Washington that outlines efforts to balance trade and reduce non-tariff barriers as part of its strategy to minimize tariff burdens on key export sectors like automobiles, steel, and semiconductors. The plan is expected to include a two-track approach, boosting imports of U.S. goods such as natural gas, crude oil, and agricultural products, while increasing production of major South Korean exports like cars and chips in the U.S. Meanwhile, Seoul's Trade Minister An Duk-eun is also expected to visit the U.S. as early as next week for negotiations with Washington. The trip follows acting President Han Duck-soo's announcement on Monday that a delegation led by An will be dispatched to initiate trade talks with the U.S. Minister An previously traveled to the U.S. in February and March, shortly after the launch of the Trump administration, to deliver Seoul's position on Washington's proposed tariff plans. 신새벽 Arirang News.
Meanwhile, trade officials from the EU and their U.S. counterparts sat down in Washington, D.C. for tariff talks that simply appear to have reaffirmed their differences, with the European delegation stressing the need for significant effort from both sides to ensure a fair deal. Our Park Gonu has more.
EU trade officials met with their U.S. counterparts in Washington, D.C. on Monday to reach a deal on tariffs, but were unable to bridge gaps in their stances on trade. According to the European Commission on Tuesday, the EU's proposal of 040 reciprocal tariffs on industrial goods, including cars, along with non-tariff barriers, were among the main items on the agenda. It added talks about overcapacity in steel and aluminum, and the resilience of supply chains in semiconductors and pharmaceutical sectors were also part of the talks. And the EU emphasized it would not budge on standards, standing firm on red lines including food, health, and safety, as well as regulations regarding technology and the digital market. European Commission spokesperson Olive Gill urged the U.S. to clarify its stance, saying the EU is doing its part and more engagement from Washington is needed to keep the process moving. Following Monday's meeting, EU Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic posted on social media saying a significant joint effort from both sides would be needed to reach a fair deal, adding that the EU is ready. Officials from the U.S. Trade Representative's office reportedly did not respond to requests for comments on the U.S. stance following the meeting. With the EU's 90-day pause on retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods set to last until July 14th, EU officials say further measures are also being discussed internally in case no agreement is reached by then. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
In other news, North Korea may have provided millions of munitions to Russia in support of the war in Ukraine. According to Reuters, 4 Russian-flagged container ships have made 64 trips from the North Korean port of Rajin to the Russian ports of Vostochny and Dunai, delivering nearly 16,000 containers of munitions since September 2023. Citing Ukrainian officials, the outlet claims Pyongyang is supplying half the munitions Russia needs on the front lines, and that at times Russian artillery units were almost entirely reliant on North Korean munitions. Partisan primaries are now well underway, and the Democratic Party has a total of 3 contenders competing for the Liberal Party ticket to the top office. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
As the Democratic Party kicks off its primary race for the 21st presidential election, its 3 preliminary candidates pledged to compete fairly and come together after the race. On Wednesday, former party leader Lee Jae-myung, Kim Kyung-soo, former Gyeongsang-nam-do Province governor, and Kim Dong-yeon, current Gyeonggi-do Province governor, made their first joint appearance since registering for the primary.
For a better life for the people and a hopeful future, the DP and our candidate, whoever that may be, must win this election.
I hope this primary will be a chance to fully showcase the DP's experience and capabilities.
I will give my best through fierce competition and come together to bring real change, beyond just a change in government.
Starting Wednesday, the party will run 4 primaries through April 27th. Chungcheong-do, Gyeongsang-do, Jeollado provinces, and the Seoul metropolitan area alongside Gangwon-do province and Jeju. During the regional primaries, dues-paying party members and party delegates will cast their votes, which will account for 50% of the total in selecting the presidential candidate. On the last day in each region, the voting results will be announced. Public polls will be conducted for 2 days, sometimes between April 21st and 27th, and these will account for the remaining 50%. The final candidate will be confirmed on April 27th. All three candidates are focusing their policy visions on the economy. Lee Jae-myung's think tank officially launched on Wednesday, outlining a national vision that aims for 3% potential growth, becoming one of the world's top 4 exporters, and creating a gross national income per capita of $50,000 by 2030. Kim Kyung-soo announced his economic policy focused on boosting the AI industry and promoting balanced regional growth, promising 100 trillion Korean won, around $70 billion, in public-private investment over the next 5 years to secure AI leadership and drive industrial change. Kim Dong-yeon, meanwhile, has been emphasizing the so-called 5 big deals to differentiate his economic policies, which includes focusing on balanced regional growth, climate change, and tax reform. 신하영, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the People Power Party has a total of 8 candidates hoping to win the partisan primary election to regain the reins of the top office. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon has details.
After closing the registration for the presidential primary, the People Power Party on Wednesday named 8 contestants after cutting 3 of the registered but not well-known names for not being up to the public's expectations and standards. As expected, the 8 are Kim Mun-soo, the latest labor minister, 5-term lawmaker Na Kyung-won, 4-term lawmaker An Chol-soo, former lawmaker Yang Yang-ja, Incheon Mayor Yu Jung-bok, Gyeongsang-buk-do Province Governor Lee Cheol-woo, former PPP Chair Han Dong-hoon, the latest Daegu Mayor Hong Jun-pyo. The chair of PPP's election committee emphasized that it'll manage a fair election.
As election committee chair, I will work with my team to ensure each candidate can freely present their vision in an open, energetic atmosphere. Through honest debate, we aim to select a candidate the people can truly trust to lead the nation.
Without a clear frontrunner, a fierce competition awaits the contestants, but some touch of fun awaits as well to garner support from the young generations. This includes heart monitoring during debates, speed round questions, and self-introductions based on MBTIs. All in all, however, Hwang emphasized party unity amid what could be seen as an uphill battle, an election after its former president was impeached.
Harmony and unity are our core values. To win the public's trust, every candidate must unite, work together, and move forward as one team.
Meanwhile, the 8 contestants released their pledges and were doing media interviews on Wednesday. However, an unexpected key figure was in the spotlight. Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hoon, who pulled out from the primaries, became a popular person to meet. Starting with dinner with Hong Jun-pyo on Tuesday night, the Seoul mayor met with Kim Mun-soo on Wednesday for breakfast, Na Kyung-won in the morning, and An Chol-soo for lunch. The candidates emphasized their visions aligned with the mayor's, which was focused on growth and helping the weak initially when he launched his campaign. This is largely seen as a message to Oh's supporters as he's not in the race anymore. Meanwhile, Han Dong-hoon visited Daegu on Wednesday. Daegu is a conservative stronghold with many eligible electors that account for 50% of the final votes. Meanwhile, after a media day for the candidates on Thursday, series of debates will be held through the weekend. Based on the debates, 4 will survive the cutoff for the next round starting April 22nd. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Beyond politics, today, that is April 16th, Korea marks 11 years since the sinking of the Sewol Ferry that claimed the lives of 304 people, mostly high school students, on a graduation trip. A memorial service was held earlier this morning by the April 16th Foundation on a boat close to where the ferry sank in Sindogun, Jeollanam-do Province. A similar event also took place in the afternoon at the Sewol Ferry Memorial Hall in Paengmokhang Port, near the site of the tragedy. Other organizations held memorials nationwide, including in Ansan, Gyeonggi-do Province, as most of the victims were students at a high school there. On the entertainment front, Korean screen productions are the second most watched content on Netflix worldwide. According to media analytics firm Ampere, South Korean content has maintained its #2 ranking just behind the US since 2023, accounting for almost 10% of the global viewership on this platform. Strong production capabilities and licensing strategies were cited as factors behind the popularity of K-content, and shows like Culinary Class Wars and drama series like Squid Game were highlighted as top screen works. Meanwhile, the UK and Japan ranked 3rd and 4th, respectively. There are convenience stores here in Seoul that are working to fight loneliness and social isolation by offering hot meals and by lending a sympathetic ear. Our news feature reporter Choi Soo-young shares their story.
Soup is cooked in a simple instant cooker. Neighbors gather to chat and share warm food, enjoying a comforting lunch together. This is Mind Convenience Store, a place run by the Seoul Metropolitan Government and local district offices. Here, anyone can come in and enjoy a free meal. For those living alone, this store becomes a cozy, welcoming space.
I really like it. We get to enjoy a nice cup of tea and have delightful chats with other seniors. It's all just so nice.
A report from the Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs last year found that nearly 80% of single-person households in the country are at risk of dying alone. The government created this space to overcome loneliness by fostering small local communities with the power of togetherness. With donated goods from private businesses, the store offers not only shared meals but also programs to ease loneliness and prevent social isolation. Through a self-test, people can assess their loneliness, and social workers are on-site for immediate support if needed.
Visitors can assess their loneliness, and if needed, they go through an additional checklist that looks at daily life and potential crisis areas. Based on the results, we provide counseling or connect them to special programs offered at Mind Convenience Store, all through a one-stop support system.
Starting in late March, it has now opened in 4 districts across Seoul in Gangbuk-gu, Do-bong-gu, Gwanak-gu, and Dongdaemun-gu. Though it's only been open about 3 weeks, the Do-bong-gu store is already welcoming over 60 local residents a day.
Until now, we didn't have many cozy spaces in the area where locals could gather and talk like this. But the response from the residents has been even better than expected. They are happy to have a place that's comfortable and easy to use.
The stores plan to launch many programs that will not only target the elderly, but also include young adults and middle-aged groups. In addition, the Seoul Metropolitan Government plans to open more Mind Convenience stores, aiming to have 1 in each district by 2027. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In the Middle East, a senior Palestinian official said Hamas rejected a new Israeli ceasefire offer that demanded the group's disarmament. The ceasefire presented by Israel to Hamas through mediators Egypt and Qatar on Monday reportedly included the disarmament of Hamas as a condition for the first time. However, on Tuesday, Hamas is said to have rejected the offer, labeling the disarmament clause a red line for the group and asserting that it will not surrender its weapons under any circumstances. The offer also included a 6-week truce and a phased release of more hostages. Hamas insists that any agreement must include a permanent end to hostilities and a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. The rejection of the ceasefire proposal comes amid ongoing negotiations in Cairo, which have yet to yield a breakthrough. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made an unannounced visit to northern Gaza to encourage troops, marking a rare appearance in the conflict zone. On Tuesday local time, Netanyahu met with Israeli troops accompanied by Defense Minister Israel Katz and top military officials. He received briefings on ongoing operations aimed at dismantling Hamas and securing the release of hostages. Netanyahu reiterated Israel's commitment to achieving its war objectives, stating, "We are fighting for our existence, we're fighting for our future." During his visit, he also addressed a recent statement by Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, saying that Iran's calls for Israel's destruction show the existential nature of the conflict. In the United States, President Donald Trump threatened to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status on Tuesday, accusing the university of promoting political agendas contrary to public interest. The Trump administration has frozen over $2.2 billion in federal grants and contracts to Harvard after the university rejected demands to overhaul its academic programs, including eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and increasing cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Harvard's president hit back, saying the university will not surrender its independence or its constitutional rights. Former President Barack Obama praised Harvard's stance and urged other institutions to defend academic independence. Finally, in France, President Emmanuel Macron honored 101 individuals who played significant roles in the restoration of Notre Dame de Paris on Tuesday local time. The ceremony at the Élysée Presidential Palace coincided with the 6th anniversary of the devastating fire at the cathedral in 2019. Among the honorees were carpenters, ironworkers, scaffolders, organ restorers, and dozens of other craftspeople recognized for their contributions. Prestigious awards presented by Macron included the Legion of Honor and the National Order of Merit. Commander of the Legion of Honor, France's highest public distinction, was bestowed upon Philippe Yost, who supervised the reconstruction. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Today, the daytime temperature rose significantly, so it was warm all over the country. Most of the areas that appear yellow on the map exceeded 20 degrees Celsius today. Some areas in the Chungcheong-do Provinces, right on the map, were much hotter, with Kimcheon reaching 27 degrees. Temperatures will become warmer tomorrow, with Seoul rising up to 24 degrees. Meanwhile, it will rain a little in southern parts of Gyeonggi-do Province and Gangwon-do Province tomorrow. On Saturday, more rain is forecast in most parts of the country at night, starting with the Seoul metropolitan area and western parts of Gangwon-do Province. Tomorrow morning will start warm with Seoul and Daegu at 13 degrees, Daejeon, Gwangju, and Busan at 14 degrees. Highs will move up to 23 degrees in Chuncheon and Gyeongju, 19 degrees in Busan. There will be huge daily temperature differences for the time being. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.